Hey guys, welcome back. So today I want to talk about something that a lot of guys have been talking about on the net recently. With the election of Donald Trump, we have, for the first time in many years, an administration in the White House that is pro-Second Amendment. Now, we haven't seen Donald Trump really move to do anything pro-Second Amendment just yet, but we have it on good authority from a number of folks, including our friends over at the NRA, that this new administration will definitely be pro-Second Amendment. So I know that a lot of the pro-gun groups are mobilizing to try to take advantage of about the next 2 years. And why do I say 2 years? Because midterm elections come up in 2 years. If you keep your eye on the news, you'll realize that let's just say the left is not happy about the loss of the presidency with Hillary Clinton. They're not happy about Trump winning the White House. Now, I don't get into partisan politics here on the YouTube channel. It's just not something of interest to me. Myself, I belong to neither political party. I'm more of a libertarian. So I will also say in the beginning, I didn't support Donald Trump. But then again, I rarely have a candidate run that I truly support. But anyway, I do hope that the Trump administration is able to appoint a Supreme Court justice that is very pro-Second Amendment. And to that end, there's a couple of things that we really need to focus on for these next 2 years. The midterm elections can come about, and with all the antics of the anti-Trump crowd that are currently going on, there is a chance that they, through their use of the media, will be able to sway enough people to get to the point where we lose control of some seats. And I say we as if I'm part of the administration. I'm not. But where the Trump administration loses control of some Republican seats, and we have to count on those seats to defend our Second Amendment rights. Now, if you're a follower of the channel for a while, you'll also know that I'm a pro-constitutionalist. I'm a pro-Bill of Rights type of guy, and I'm certainly a pro-Second Amendment guy. My views on the Second Amendment are probably a little bit more radical than your average gun owner. So I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that is currently law in this country. And a couple of things I don't agree with that is something that's of a hot topic right now on the interwebs is the subject of the Hughes Amendment, the NFA as a whole, and things like national reciprocity and stuff like that. But the things I want to talk about right now are the Hughes Amendment, the NFA, and just touch upon the Hearing Protection Act. Let's start off with the low-hanging fruit, the Hearing Protection Act. Right now, there is a bill before the Congress that will basically take suppressors off the NFA and make them accessible to everybody. I hope that you guys will be active in trying to get the HPA passed. And how can you be active? And this is true about everything I'm going to talk about in this video. Email your state and federal representatives, but don't forget your state representatives. Be sure you call them, fax them, anything you can do. And don't just send one email and say, yep, good, I've done everything I can. I'm talking about a constant bombardment of emails, phone calls, and faxes. I also caution you against being hostile. Don't be threatening or nasty or ill-tempered in your emails. Be very level-headed and communicate your support for the Hearing Protection Act or the repealing of the Hughes Amendment or the repealing of the NFA as a whole. So the Hearing Protection Act is something that we have a real crack at getting past this first year. Now, the Democrats have promised to be obstructionists during this first year or two. They're going to hold up appointments. They're probably going to try to filibuster or stop bills like the Hearing Protection Act that a pro-Second Amendment administration may try to pass. We do need 60 votes in the Senate to get it passed. Currently, we don't have those 60 votes unless some Democrats come over to the Republican side and support it. And that's where your emails, phone calls, and faxes come into play and can be quite important. So please take a few minutes to take a look at the Hearing Protection Act and to write some emails. I will put some links down below that will be helpful for you guys to learn about the HPA and also how to get in touch with your state and federal representatives. So the HPA is something that we definitely need to mobilize and get our forces out there pushing for. Now let's talk about the Hughes Amendment and the NFA. They're both kind of one and the same. Right now there's a petition going around that a lot of the social media folks are pushing for. I know I've pushed it on Facebook, I've pushed it on Instagram, and right now I'm talking about it on my YouTube channel. As you know, I don't go political very often here on the channel. The channel is about firearms and safe and responsible ownership of firearms, having a good time with firearms, and I try to stay out of the political arena. I get involved when I think that it's time for me to get involved, and it's important that I get involved. I did so after Sandy Hook and big events like that where anti-gun forces were moving very quickly to try to take away semi-automatic rifles and 30-round magazines and things like that. The minute that threat subsided, I went back to strictly gun content. Be prepared through the course of the next 2 years for me to do political videos and try to mobilize our base to take advantage of these next 2 years to roll back draconian gun laws that we will never have an opportunity like this again, most likely in our lifetimes, okay? So let's talk about the NFA. The NFA was enacted in 1934, and basically it took away about everything. It took away short-barreled rifles or rifles with a barrel length of less than 16 inches. It took away short-barreled shotguns or shotguns with barrel lengths of less than 18 inches. It took away machine guns. It took away any other weapon, which is just kind of a catch-all. It took away all sorts of stuff, silencers and all sorts of things. And when I say it took away, when they passed the law in 1934, they placed a $200 tax on the transfer of those items. In 1934, $200 was just a few $100 shy of what you could buy a car for. In essence, nobody could afford it. Fortunately, when they passed that law, they didn't allow for inflation, and the cost of transfer didn't go up. So today, $200 is more or less of a nuisance. But back in 1934, it was extremely expensive, and it was intended to be so expensive that nobody would ever purchase those types of items. It's also interesting to note that handguns were in the original draft of that bill, but they were pulled out at the end. So the 1934 NFA Act heavily regulated everything outside of semi-automatic and single-shot rifles and lever actions and things like that. If you wanted a barrel length shorter than 16 inches, if you wanted a short-barreled shotgun, if you wanted, a handgun with a stock on it, stuff like that, you simply couldn't do it unless you asked government for permission and paid a $200 tax to exercise your right to exercise your rights to the Second Amendment. So the NFA, in my opinion, was completely unconstitutional. We have plenty of case law to show that. There was a time when, I believe it was Boston, tried to put a 2-cent tax on newspapers. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you can't tax a constitutionally protected right. And that's exactly what the NFA is. Now, I remember as a kid growing up, I walked into gun stores in the 80s and machine guns were hanging on the wall. They weren't much more expensive than their semi-automatic counterparts. And believe it or not, there weren't running gun battles in the streets with machine guns, and gangs weren't mowing people down by the droves. As a matter of fact, up until 1986, May of 1986, when they were taken away from us under the Hughes Amendment, machine guns were never used in crime. They were a statistical zero. Up until that point in 1986, there were only 1 or 2 instances where a legally owned machine gun was used in a crime. Ironically, it was a police officer that shot and killed his wife's lover as one of those people that used a legally owned machine gun to commit a crime. So basically, machine guns were never used in crimes to begin with, just as suppressors are never used in crimes to begin with. Most criminals don't want a short-barreled rifle when they go rob something. They want a handgun that they can hide in their pocket. They're criminals or the people that take advantage of opportunities, and they try to hide things. You're not going to hide a rifle, I don't care if the barrel's 12 inches long. It's not nearly as easy to hide as handguns, and handguns, especially cheap ones, are the most common firearms used in crime. So the NFA didn't fix anything. If anything, it just grossly infringed on our rights, and it made it impossible for people to buy just regular firearms. Machine guns are no more lethal. Some would argue, myself included, that a semi-automatic rifle is more lethal than a machine gun. A machine gun, if you hold the trigger back, just sprays lead everywhere. The problem we face today, however, is something that cropped up on my Instagram. I posted a picture saying repeal the Hughes Amendment. The Hughes Amendment is what took machine guns away from us in 1986. And that was part of a poison pill that the Democrats attached to the Firearm Owners Protection Act, which was actually a good piece of legislation. But back then, we did not have line item veto at the presidential level. So to get the good legislation passed, the Democrats inserted this anti-gun measure, which took machine guns away, which were never used in crimes anyway, from the general population. So the NRA advised President Reagan to go ahead and sign the Firearm Owners Protection Act, accept the Hughes Amendment, let machine guns go away, and they promised that they would fight it in court later. They never did, and it's one of the beefs I have with the NRA, but I'm not here to complain about the NRA. I think the NRA is actually a very important group. The problem I'm seeing is with that picture that I posted on my Instagram page. Now, I'm 48 years old. Again, I remember when I saw machine guns hanging on the walls of just every regular gun shop in America. You could walk around and look at a semi-automatic AR-15, or for $150 more, you could buy an M16. And we didn't have running gun battles, but for some reason people said, oh my gosh, and these are pro-gun people. Oh my gosh, Mac, why would you support the repealing of the Hughes Amendment? We don't need machine guns. There'll be running gun battles in the streets. These are, I'm a Generation Xer, these are millennials that grew up never knowing what it was like to own a machine gun. They think that machine guns, due to anti-gun media programming for the last 30 years, they believe that machine guns are evil. It's the same argument that was used against us when we were trying to pass concealed carry laws. These anti-gun forces were saying, well, if we give everybody a gun, there's going to be running gun battles in the street and crime is going to skyrocket. Now all 50 states, Illinois being the last to comply, was drug kicking and screaming through the federal courts into actually issuing concealed carry permits. But now all 50 states have some form of concealed carry as a law on their books. And guess what? There aren't running gun battles in the streets. If we gave machine guns back to the general population, there still wouldn't be running gun battles in the streets. Gun owners, especially those that go through the hoops of paying a $200 check tax and then subjecting themselves to a background check, probably aren't going to go out and rob a bank or shoot their neighbor. And that's been borne out by facts and history. As a matter of fact, the entire time while these states, from the 80s until present, were passing concealed carry laws, we watched crime plummet. More guns in the hands of people, good people, meant less crime. John Lott wrote a book about it, More Guns, Less Crime. And that is a fact. Now, the anti-gun forces in America would have you believe that a gun in your house means you're 10 times more likely to die by that gun, which is absolute nonsense, and they have no scientific data to back that up. But it's this anti-gun programming that has even creeped into our own firearms culture, where now people think that we can't be trusted with machine guns, or we can't be trusted with short barrel rifles. We can't be trusted with suppressors, because we're all going to become criminals overnight if we're allowed to have them. When I was a kid in 1985, you could go buy one and nobody was shooting anybody with them. So we have to sadly re-educate our own community. We have to educate these millennials that have never known the right to own a machine gun, that it's not a dangerous thing, that people aren't going to suddenly turn into, raving lunatic killers because they got an M16. It's asinine to believe that, and I find it hard and disheartening to see our own community arguing against the repealing of the Hughes Amendment, or, as I advocate for, repealing the NFA as a whole. The NFA is unconstitutional. You cannot tax a right. You can't. It's a constitutionally protected right, that being the right to own a firearm. You can't tax it. That would be like me telling you, you can say whatever you want, but before you say it, you got to pay a $200 tax to the government and then subject your commentary to some sort of government auditor and get a stamp of approval before you can get on camera and say what I'm saying to you right now. Would you accept that? Then why in the hell do you accept a government saying, pay me $200 and I'll tell you a year later if you can have it? It's not legal. It's not constitutional. And the millennials that think that we can't be trusted with firearms, who own firearms, who claim to be Second Amendment advocates, what the heck is wrong with you? Wake up and get active. And this is the second part to my gripe. So I want to see activism over the next 2 years that hopefully I can help spearhead to some degree, and other people in social media can. I want to see the NFA repealed as a whole. If we can't do that, let's shoot for the Hughes Amendment first and allow people to be able to at least purchase machine guns, even if they have to pay a $200 bogus tax and ask for permission. Let's at least get that repealed so we can start buying our firearms that we would like to own again. And then let's work on repealing the NFA and get it off the books, because it's unconstitutional. It's an illegal tax. Now, the way we can do that, one method, is to let the government know, the current administration know, that we want this done. And how can we do that? There's a petition going around for repealing the NFA right now. That's what most people seem to be focusing on right now online. But despite the fact that I've pushed it on Facebook and Instagram, a lot of other big social media folks have pushed it on Facebook, Instagram, and in some cases video, it's gotten no traction. We have 10,000 signatures. We need 100,000. What happens at 100,000 signatures? Well, at 100,000 signatures, that petition now has to be reviewed by staff at the White House, and they have to respond to it. If we don't hit that 100,000 signature threshold, nothing happens. So I've heard people say these petitions mean nothing. That is total and utter nonsense, and it's coming from people that are too darn lazy to even type a couple of keystrokes. There's another group out there that says, well, I don't want the government knowing I support this. I don't want them having my email address. Are you really that silly? Do you not think if the government doesn't, or do you really think the government doesn't know who you are? Have you ever purchased a handgun? Are you so naive to think that 4473 form that they're not supposed to keep when they do the NICS background check, that they don't really keep it? How naive can you be? You're not putting yourself at any more exposure. But let me ask you this. What exposure do you think our founding fathers what do you think our founding fathers exposed themselves to when they signed their name to the Declaration of Independence and they sent it to the King of England? They signed their own death warrants. But you're too cowardly to put your email into a form on a website because you don't want the government knowing who you are? Meanwhile, you pay your taxes, they know who you are. You use your social security number to get loans, they know who you are. You fill out 4473 forms, they know who you are. But you don't want to fill out a petition because you really don't know if you want the government knowing who you are. It's a lame argument, it doesn't float, and you're not helping our cause. We have 2 years before we run the risk of the Democrats regaining a few seats in the House and even more detrimentally in the Senate. And then we might not have the power to get any of these bills passed or any of this legislation undone. So I implore you guys not just to watch this video and not just go follow the link that's down below and sign these petitions, but I implore you guys to spread that around. Yes, I have a large social presence, but I'm one person. I can't get 100,000 people to sign that petition, apparently, because I've tried, and nor can many of the other top social media folks. It's going to take you posting at your Facebook page to your 100, 200, to 500 friends and motivating them to come along and help. I'm not asking for much. All I'm asking for is a few keystrokes to roll back draconian laws that we may never have a chance to roll back again in our lifetimes. So that's what this video was about. I understand it's a political rant. Yes, I get wound up about it. Yes, I'm very passionate about it, but I'm going to continue to pressure the community as a whole to not just sit back and say, wow, we got a Second Amendment friendly administration. Let's just do nothing for the next 4 years. Let's only get wound up when we have a Democratic president or a democratically controlled Congress. Now is the time to take the offensive and press that offensive and roll back these laws that we've been living under. And if that's of no interest to you, you're not a patriot. You're not a real patriotic gun owner. You're just a clingers-on or hangers-on. You're part of the problem. Don't be part of the problem, folks. Please be part of the solution. So down below, I want to put some links to the petitions I'm talking about. Primarily, let's target the Repeal the NFA, but there's some petitions out there for repealing the Hughes Amendment as well. I support repealing one or both. I want them both gone, but let's pick and choose our battles. Let's start with the Hughes Amendment, get it undone, and let's target the NFA. But let's just get both those petitions to 100,000. I'm not asking you to move mountains, guys. This should be simple to do. This video alone should reach 70,000 people in the course of the next few days. So please, please, a few keystrokes. Get in the fight. Fight to preserve the rights for yourself and for your children and your children's children. I'm in this fight. I'm 48 years old. I'm fighting this fight not so I can have guns in the future. I'm fighting this fight so my children, my 3 sons, can have firearms when they're my age, and then their children can too. And we can keep control and get a rein back on a government that is taking far too many liberties from our people. If you guys have any question about anything you've seen this video, you can ask those questions down below. I do try to stick around for those first couple of days after a video goes live to answer the questions you may have. Also, if you would like to support the Military Arms channel, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. It's our online store. And again, it's the best way to support us here at the channel. And if you haven't already, please check out Fold30.com. That's Fold30.com. We've taken all the web's best firearms content creators and brought them under one roof. That is Fold30.com. We have version 2 up and running now. We have forums and blogs and all the video content from those top creators. Please come by and check it out. Folks, get in the fight, get others in the fight, and let's take this thing to the finish line. Let's roll back the laws. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.